live. I believe we are live. I'm just checking quickly to see if we got the audio working. And we do. Okay. We're switching this to public. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. 1 a.m. live stream. Let's see who joins. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. By the way, today is February 4th, which means tomorrow is February 5th, which means tomorrow is the start of the 2,000 push-ups in 23 days. On February 5th at 10 a.m., it's going to be very fun. I'm going to be doing 63 push-ups, and I hope that you will join me for that. I hope that you guys will, in the meantime, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for being here. I hope you're all doing very, very well. I'm going to be doing them all around the city at different parts and different parts of the city of Windsor, because I want to celebrate the city of Windsor. I want to use this as a chance to celebrate what is an awesome city, an awesome town. So maybe some of them will have Masonic significance. Some of them will just be places I love. Hello, Iron PR. Fair enough. You seem to be a Christian. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. And I hope that you will let me know how you're doing. Let's give it a few minutes to see who joins. Hello, Bad Bet, Adam's boyfriend. That's a lot to say. I'm going to call you Bad Bet. Thank you. Howdy to yourself as well. Thank you for being here. I hope that you are doing well. I can't remember if you've been on the stream before. I've never met a Satanist Freemason. I'm not saying it's impossible. Anything's possible, I suppose. I never met any Satanist Freemasons. I once knew a Satanist who expressed interest in joining Freemasonry. Once I told him what Freemasonry was, he decided he did not want to join because he did not think it would be something that he could be both a Freemason and a Satanist, because Freemasonry was opposite to his beliefs as a Satanist. So you can take that for whatever it's worth. Hello, Lee. Well, you may have, but if you're not a Mason yourself, you may have met people you thought were Freemasons, which were in fact clandestine. You might not even know what the term clandestine means if you're not a Freemason yourself. Geez, Timothy. First of all, let's not have the all caps. That's a bit extreme. Second, people can definitely find salvation. I think the religious experiences. Freemasonry is not a religion, and Freemasonry does not make any promises of salvation. Having said that, I will never knock anybody's kind of beliefs or religious beliefs. I don't think there's anything, I think it's definitely possible for people to find salvation, hope, happiness, purpose through religious belief. It's also possible for it to go a very different way and a very not so good way also. You need to keep that in mind as well. I have not studied the Anunnaki creation story. Good for them. If it brings them peace and comfort, I'm not going to judge it. I would suggest it might not provide much in terms of a roadmap on how to live one's life, or certainly a promise of salvation. But it's not for me to say. I guess what I would say is their worship legitimate and heartfelt, or rather is it basically some type of weird troll? And if it's the latter, then trying to make a mockery of religion, then that's not okay. Hello, Mexico. Welcome, Spanish. Good to see you. Please take a moment. If you're new, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're not new, thank you for returning here. Hello, sunglasses guy. Have a great day as well. Thank you for being here. 88R, thank you for being here also. My dad is from England. My mom is from Canada. But Freemasonry does not discriminate based on one's ethnicity. That's the beautiful thing about it. Well, Mexico balls. I've been to Mexico a few times and I love it. If you're new, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Um, well, I don't know if there has to be necessarily, like, I don't know what that means. I mean, I once knew somebody who they were I think it was a carpenter. They were a tradesman, and they said when they're working on, building something, it's still something they're doing not just for their employment. It's something they do for God or for their interpretation of God, trying to build something special. I think what the Jewish expression, Freemasonry is not Jewish, but it's an expression I like, was something to the effect of a well-made wall is a prayer. You could argue that if someone views it, they could view, 24 hours a day is dedicated to God, whatever they're doing in their lives. Even if they're sleeping, they're resting so they can have energy the next day to then go about their day and be the best version of themselves they can be, and maybe worship their God as best as they can understand it. If they're eating, they're fueling themselves to, exist in the world. So I don't know if there has to be a distinction between the two. I'm not religious myself, so I spend, I guess, all my time on Freemasonry. Um, I don't know what 15 pillars means. So LCIS, I wouldn't call myself religious. I believe in a supreme being. I don't necessarily believe in a religion. Um, I do not know I mean, I'm enthusiastic about Freemasonry and I'm a member. I'm both. I don't know what a Freemason enthusiast means, but I love being a Freemason. I love being a member. I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges. It's crazy to think it's been that many. 3 in Canada, 1 in Israel, 1 in Texas, Tejas. Well, I thank you, Give Hand. I appreciate that. I have been lucky enough and blessed enough to travel the world. I've been to the Philippines, Rio de Janeiro, Bogota, all across the States, quite a few places in Canada, England, Scotland, and I'm grateful. Um, if you want to give hand, it's the old expression to be one, ask one. You need to find a Masonic lodge in your area, express your interest in joining, and go from there. Don't rush the process. It doesn't have to take forever, but it also doesn't have to be, a couple weeks or something crazy like that. Just give it a chance, give it time, get to know the lodge, get to know the brothers. But the start of the process is you approaching them and expressing your interest in joining, and you go from there. Hello, Gooey. Thank you for being here. I see you, Chiquito, but we get a lot of comments. I am not British, but my dad is British. Um, well, Caesar, it's my stream, so if I hurt your feelings, then, you know, so, so be it. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm also not going to sugarcoat it if somebody's being foolish on the stream. Um, I do not know what Pizzagate is, but my assumption is no. Um, what are the benefits of joining the Masons? MUED, MUED. The benefits of joining the Freemasons are, it depends on the brother. Every Masonic brother or Mason derives his own benefits. For me, for example, one of the benefits I get from being a Freemason is it makes me feel closer to my grandfather. He was a Freemason. He passed away before I was born. I never got to meet him, but he was a Freemason. And, as am I, I get to feel connected to him in a way I would not have otherwise. Some Freemasons benefit from the social safety net aspect of it, right? For example, it is absolutely possible. I've known brothers who would have been homeless were it not for Freemasons stepping in and providing them benevolence. So in some ways, it's almost an insurance. You develop skills and abilities. You develop conflict resolution skills, public speaking skills, leadership skills, memorization skills. If you ever want to develop administrative skills in terms of how to run a meeting successfully, how to make sure your meeting operates successfully, such as, how to make a motion, pass a motion, hold discussion on motions, speaking order, things of that nature. Freemasonry is a great training ground for that. But mostly at its core, the benefit of Freemasonry is the same as the benefit that exists within any group or organization. It's enjoying one another's company, right? What is the benefit of being part of a group of guys that get together on a Friday night and go to the pub, go to the bar, play darts, go bowling? What's the benefit of a bowling league? You could say it's the bowling, but that's not really what it's about. You can bowl by yourself. You can bowl alone, to borrow a phrase. Rather, it's about being around people you enjoy being around. And sometimes you have to purposely schedule it. You can't just hope you run into friends and hope you can hang out with them. Sometimes you have to set time aside for that. Yes, I got a big nose. Brian, please hit like and subscribe. Rudyard Kipling was a Freemason. I'm almost positive. In some ways, it is student council for adults, Sly, but a lot of people don't develop those skills in high school and they need to develop them later on in life. I love microwaved hot dogs. I have no issue with the Mormons. I mean, I don't know much about them, but it's a religion, and I'm not going to be a reviler of anybody's religion. Give hand. So no issues with them, no concerns about them. Um, Slybuster, that's unkind. Um, Albert Pike was not a founder of the KKK. Zohan, I don't even think he was a member. He could have been. I could be wrong, but I don't believe he was the founder of the KKK. I think you're incorrect about that. I think you might be thinking of Nathaniel Bedford Forrest. He's a different person, right? Yeah, I don't think Albert Pike was not a founder of or was even a member of the KKK to my knowledge. He was a member of the Confederacy, but Zoran, you're wrong about that. I mean, I guess it's possible because he did have some racist views, although it's interesting enough about Albert Pike. Later on in his life, he actually grew to be much more tolerant of people of different races, black people especially, which is very interesting, very confusing. But people grow, people change. Maybe Masonic lessons of tolerance and understanding and kindness actually worked on Albert Pike, and he grew more tolerant and respectful and less racist. Um, I think, Slybuster, that my self-esteem was pretty great before I joined Freemasonry. Freemasonry hasn't made me have a greater self-esteem, though it's made me feel more competent in certain areas. Um, I love boiled hot dogs. I love hot dogs in general. I absolutely I absolutely do love hot dogs, especially in summer. My favorite type of hot dog, though, is actually on a barbecue with a toasted bun. Freemasons don't serve the monarchy. Freemasons are not I mean, to the extent that Freemasonry, we are meant to be patriotic or respectful of the laws and the governance of the countries in which we live. I suppose you could argue if you're a Freemason in United Kingdom, you serve the monarchy just because they're the head of state. If you're in Canada, you could argue that serve the governor general in some ways. If you're a Freemason in the States, it's the president. And you don't serve them, you're rather a good citizen with all that entails, user. Um, um, well, Caesar, I thought you were being kind of foolish. So, yeah, in terms of the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue you were asking for was, in my opinion, foolish stuff, especially because I had to repeat myself several times, right? If I give you an answer and you don't believe it, then that's okay. You don't have to believe it. But if your response is to just say the same thing back, at a certain point, it gets kind of tiresome, right? You can believe me or not believe me, Caesar, either is perfectly fine. But once I give you an answer on Freemasonry, that's kind of the end of that question. Um, yes and no, Caesar. I don't know if I would. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Some Freemasons were anti-monarchy, right? George Washington was anti-monarchy. Garibaldi, Jose Rizal, Simon Bolivar, they were all anti-monarchy. However, by the same token, King George, he was a Freemason and he was a king. He was pro-monarchy almost by definition. Um, I would say John A. Macdonald was fairly pro-monarchy. He was the first Canadian prime minister, but he certainly had no issues with, being supportive of being part of the monarchy. In fact, so was John Diefenbaker. If Certainly Freemasons are, generally speaking, a democratic organization, and we support democracy as a rule. However, it is possible to support both a democracy that has as the head of state a monarchy, for example, England, Canada. It's more totalitarian rule that Freemasons have been opposed to, not inherently a monarchy, as you have in Canada and United Kingdom. Both I would consider to be democracies and democratic, but I'd also call them both monarchies. I love Coffee, Valerie, and Betsy. I don't think King George was assassinated. I could be wrong. I don't know if he was assassinated or not, user. Bottle of soap. I know what I'm talking about. Freemasonry. Jeffrey Joseph Smith was a Freemason, the founder of Mormonism. I understand he borrowed, stole, pick your term, some ideas about Freemasonry and put them into Mormonism, but I can't say because I'm not a Mormon. Yes, I got a big tooth gap. Roy, please hit like and subscribe. Um, I do not like grape soda. I do like fortune cookies. Hers and Ritter, I may, but I think we're doing okay for now. Just putting out of a tooth gap is fine. Most people hit the like and subscribe button. That's what matters most. Uh, I do not know because I don't know what LDS church members. I mean, other than I've met a few LDS, I believe church members, and they seem like good people, kind people, good members of the community. I can't speak to like anything specific about their faith because it's not something I know anything about necessarily. Um, Oof, I don't think I could go without caffeine user. I can go without without alcohol. I don't drink actually. I've never had a sip of alcohol. Without coffee though, that would not be fun. Um, Sure. Yeah. There's no rule, Mued, about who a Freemason does or does not hire for work. That's his professional life. That's different than Freemasonry. He may choose to hire Masons for whatever reason, maybe because he knows them well, but he doesn't have to. There's no rule or no expectation that he will do so. Um, my local Freemason, I don't know why they said that, Nam. I'm very sorry about that. Um, did they say why? Because that's strange. I am an ex. Oh, you're saying the LDS are brainwashed? Again, I can't speak to Latter-day Saints. I tried my best, though, to not be a reviler or knock anyone's religion, especially because I know so little about them. You as well, oblivious. You above. Acceptance like membership? No, I think in both cases, Freemasons are fairly accepting. I mean, there's application process. You don't just knock on the door and become a Freemason, that day. There's an application process. You have to learn more about the guy. There's different orders, which some orders, like in France, you have the Grand Orient, which is liberal. So you have co-masonry. You also have, it welcomes atheism. So it depends. It depends on the lodge too, and what their kind of rules are when it comes to how they approach Freemasonry. It's the idea of guarding the West Gate, which if you never heard that expression before, guarding the West Gate, it's this idea of ensuring that you're bringing in good applicants and making them good candidates and good Masons. Um, I mean, when all I can think of, Timothy, when I hear John Lennon and religion was his song Imagine. I think religion has done a lot of good things for the world. I also think religion has done a lot of not so good things for the world. I think, as with everything else in life, it's about the person who wields it more so than the religion itself. There is, Annan. There's the Order of Women Freemasons, which formed in England and has existed in England for longer than English women have had the right to vote. There's also Eastern Star. There's also Rainbow, which is for young women or girls. It's a youth group. Um, I'm sure you would be CEO. It just takes time. Well, if you're in Germany, you'll probably speak German. If you're in Israel, you may speak Hebrew, you may speak English. I've been to lodges in South America where they speak Spanish. Very often it is spoken in the mother tongue of the country in which they're meeting, though there are times when it's actually spoken in English, if, for example, they derived from the Grand Lodge of England or their lodge is chartered at the Grand Lodge of England. I'm sure it does give hand. I'm sure it does. I did not, but I don't know much about the Orange Order. I understand it's anti-Catholic, though I could be mistaken about it. Um, so the Orange Order was founded in 1795 by men who were Freemasons, including James Wilson, Daniel Winter, and James Sloan. While not officially affiliated, the order adopted extensive structural and ritualistic and symbolic elements from Freemasonry, such as the lodge system, different titles. I mean, it was not, looks like, ever a recognized Masonic order, which means I could not have joined it even if it existed today. I don't know if it still does exist today, but it's not something that would be recognized or that I could necessarily join as a Mason. Um, for better or worse, because Freemasonry was so incredibly ubiquitous, um, Freemasons also founded the Young Farmers of America. Freemasons also helped found the Boy Scouts, if I recall correctly. I know that Freemasons, helped grow as a joke, the Free Gardeners. I mean, maybe I'm not going to knock Jeffrey or Joseph Smith or Mormon faith. What I'm just going to say is if Mormonism brings people closer to their understanding of God or their faith, then I'm not going to knock it, not going to knock them. Um, well, then I must be very gay, Tarsus, because I'm pretty high in the order. Having said that, there is no highest in the order. The highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. So I can look more into the Orange Order. Again, it's not something I know much about. It looks like it was founded by Freemasons, but it was not a Masonic order itself. In the same way, Freemasons founded the Young Farmers of America, but it's not a Masonic order in and of itself. Um, I don't think Freemasons have aliases. I'm known as Cameron Adamson or Cameron. Um, a neophyte in Freemasonry, Zohan. So I've been a Mason for 20 years. I've been to 1,000 meetings, or over 1,000 meetings in places like the Philippines, Colombia, Brazil, throughout America, throughout Canada, England, Scotland, and I'm still a neophyte. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, Hayes. Are you saying that I'm so handsome I can get 7 girls at once? Because believe me, that is not my experience. I'm quite ugly. I don't think I can get 7 girls at once. Or are you saying I look like I would be the type of guy who'd be scheming and misleading women? In which case, no. Not that I ever have the chance. Um, Okay. Again, I'm not going to knock the Mormon faith. I have no knowledge of it one or the other, except everybody I've met who's a Mormon have been good people, or at least good to me and kind to me. Um, well, again, the KKK thing, I'm not so sure about. Albert Pike, to my knowledge, did not start or was not involved in the KKK. The one I know of was Nathaniel Bedford Forrest. But, Freemasons are imperfect human beings, and we mess up, we make mistakes, right? That doesn't mean that the actual um, ideals of Freemasonry or the organization is wrong. Rather, individuals don't always get it right within the order. A good example, I've used this before, George Washington and the founding fathers famously owned slaves. They also famously wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. So does that mean that that phrase is not, that phrase and America itself is meaningless because the people who wrote it acted in some ways hypocritically? Or is the ideal worth celebrating? And are the men who wrote that ideal worth celebrating despite their imperfections? Freemasonry is the same way. There have been many Freemasons who've done foolish things, who've messed up, who've done illegal things, because there's been a lot of Freemasons. That doesn't mean the ideals of Freemasonry are not worth celebrating, including those who try their best and maybe fall short. Um, um, what did I call Joseph Smith? Oh, maybe I just got the name wrong. I should have said Joseph Smith. Very sorry if I called him Jeffrey by mistake. Joseph Smith. But I mean, I mean, that could be why modern Catholics are wary of them, but the Catholic faith has been wary of Freemasons since 1736, 7. I think that's when the first papal encyclopedic was written by the church. So it's not a new wariness. In my experience, again, the best way to understand where that wariness comes from is Pope Leo the 13th's work, Humanum Genus, which is a papal encyclopedic or papal document expressing why he felt Freemasonry was a negative. I think that's the best place to go, but I wouldn't shock me if some people knew about the Orange Order and that's what made them wary of it. Um, I'm not growing my hair. This is my hair. Loser, bro. Well, Anthony B. Star, you're still here. So if you're still here, how can I be a loser? If you're watching me, who is the true loser? The loser on the screen or the loser watching the loser on the screen? Um, uh, I mean, I can't speak for Masons in France, Spain, and Italy. I mean, I would be very surprised if Masons in Italy were anti-clerical, although Garibaldi may have been, to be fair. I'd have to look more into his stuff. I can only, speak exclusively from my experiences within Freemasonry, both my experiences within Freemasonry in Canada and around the world, which is I've never heard any negative statements, discussion, talk, beliefs about either the Catholic Church or religion in general. It's one of the things I love about Freemasonry, right? If I were to come across a Mason speaking ill of the Catholic Church, I would probably have, or certainly speaking ill of Catholics at the very least. If he has some concerns about, I don't know, Catholic doctrines or decisions on a political sense, I would, he can have those opinions, I guess, so long as he doesn't bring them up in lodge. But if you were to say, I don't like Catholics or Catholics are bad people, I would have a talk with him after lodge and just remind him that, when it comes to Freemasons, we should be respectful of every religion, including Catholics, who are, in my experience, just as good as anybody. Like they're good people, they're good parts members of the community. Some of my good friends are Catholic. Their churches do a ton of charitable work. The Knights of Columbus is a great group. So I cannot speak. I've never seen any indication, even amongst my travels, of, you know, religious intolerance, including against Catholics. Um, well, they did spearhead the Italian unification. That's true. Garibaldi did. Although whether that was because he was anti-clerical or just pro a unified Italy, I would need to look more into that. It's possible to be both, right? In the same way, it's possible to be pro an independent Canada and pro the monarchy. The two things are not automatically mutually exclusive. Now, I'm not saying Garibaldi, who was a Freemason and he was kind of the father of modern Italy. I'm not suggesting that he wasn't also anti-Vatican and anti-clerical. I'm just saying a unified Italy does not strike me as inherently anti-Catholic. Um, um, yeah, I mean, and user KQ9, I'm sure your father was a great man. I'm sure he was a great man, right? You don't want to be knocking anybody's faith. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Um, they are a dream seeker. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Well, Corey, I wouldn't say that. I think every religion provides a valuable story through which we can better understand the world. Now, how literally you want to take that story, everybody has to decide for themselves. But I'm not going to knock any of those stories. Um, well, you've met one now, Circle Keeper, not IRL, not in real life, but at least on YouTube. So I'm a Freemason. I've been a Freemason for 20 years, or that just about. I've been to over 1,000 Masonic events all around the world, and I'm very grateful to be a Freemason and talk about Freemasonry. What about women? Women can be Freemasons. We have the Order of Women Freemasons, Co-Masonry. There's youth groups. There's Eastern Star. Um, yes, it's 1 a.m. here. It's 1:30 a.m. here. So yes, everyone like and subscribe to this channel. I agree with that. Thank you everybody who's done that so far. It's been a great stream. By the way, thank you to everybody um, who has been helping this channel grow. We had record-breaking views in June, actually, sorry, in January. In January of 2026, we actually got more views than at any other time. We set a record for views, set a record for people tuning in. We're growing our subscribers as well, which is great to see. So I'm grateful for everybody who's helped make that possible. What does it mean to be a Freemason? To be a Freemason means you believe the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Actually, what it means is you're a member of a Masonic lodge. It's a membership designation. Um, um, what I can say is I would have no issue sitting with the trans brother. That would be fine with me. Um, Well, a degree doesn't go by years. I'm a third degree Master Mason, which is the highest degree within Freemasonry. I'm also 18th degree Scottish Rite. Um, well, Leah, I don't think Satan's in this channel. However, I do appreciate being here very much. I mean, I think it's just the nature of it gets complicated. Certainly, in the 17th and 18th centuries, Freemasonry at least had a reputation of being left wing. In the 1950s, it had a reputation of being very right wing and very conservative. The truth is, it's not a political organization. I mean, there were Masons on all sides of things, right? Certainly, I suspect that King George would have considered the Masons in America, particularly George Washington, um, and Paul Revere, to be quite radical, at least in their anti-monarchy views. Throwing and Ben Franklin and all those guys. I mean, it's just really complicated. There is no single kind of Masonic political philosophy, nor should there be. Freemasonry is not a political entity. But, I would say if there's an overarching theme to Freemasonry in a democrat in a political sense, it would probably be an appreciation of or a belief in democracy more so than anything else. However, that ends up manifesting itself, it's different probably depending on the culture of the country in which you're located, right? In the Philippines, it was probably more so against Spain, right? The monarchy, which did not allow for democratic institutions. So plunder, how do you get into lodge? There are three prerequisites. The first plunder is you need to believe in a supreme being. Doesn't have to be religious, particularly. You don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be Christian or Muslim or Jewish, or you can be any of those things, or Hindu or Sikh or indigenous and have indigenous beliefs and cultures, but you have to believe in a supreme being of some sort. Whatever that is up to you. You have to be over the correct age. It's 21 in Ontario. In the States, very often it's 18 or 21 years of age, but you have to be the correct age. It depends on jurisdiction. And you have to approach the Masonic Lodge and express your interest in joining. And you go from there. So that's the three things you have to do at the start. After you approach them, the lodge will kind of take it from there and they'll engage in an investigation and they'll talk to you, you'll talk to them. It's as much your chance to learn and investigate the lodge as it is for them to get to know more about you. We do not use stones for scrying. I've never seen that. I mean, there may be, I've known a couple Wiccan, again, Wiccan Masons, in their own time and on their own, with their own kind of spiritual beliefs, they may scry. I don't know, but Masons don't. And I mean, we don't use magic. I don't believe in magic, except for illusions. So no, no to that one as well. I mean, the Constitution transcends time. I think good ideas transcend time, CEO. We do not worship Lucifer, Leah. You are incorrect. Hello, Jason. Well, OKC, then maybe you want to approach them and express your interest in joining. Yeah, Freemasonry is very popular in Morocco, to my knowledge. And, it's wonderful. I'd love to visit a Masonic lodge in Morocco. I think that would be really, really cool and really, really fun to do so. Maybe I get the chance. But yeah, there's a great deal of Freemasonry within Morocco, to my knowledge. Um, yeah, that's true, Circle Keeper. Freemason is not political. So we have left wing, we have people who are politically left, politically right, politically conservative, liberal, NDP, Reform, Labor, Republican, Democrat. Freemasonry is not a political organization. That's my point. A lot of people assign political motives to Freemasons, but that's incorrect. If they were to join, they would learn the truth, which is Freemasonry is not political. We have Freemasons on all different sides. That's why when people say, for example, like Freemasonry is radical, or whatever it is, it's like, to whom? What does that mean? People outside of Freemasonry will sometimes judge Freemasonry as being political, but it's actually not. Um, Leah Smith keeps saying Jesus is God. Um, we have many Christian Freemasons. You're right. Your end goal should be to hit the like and subscribe button. The end goal of Freemasonry, in my opinion, is there is no end goal. It's a continual effort. It's continual work, trying to build a better world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Others would say the end goal is just to enjoy one another's company and to be happy. Like, what is the end goal of getting together with your friends and hanging out with them, playing darts or going bowling or going to a movie with them? You enjoy each other's company. Why must there be an end goal beyond that? Why must it mean anything other than the enjoyment of being with one another and the enjoyment of one another's company? Right? That's good enough. That's a sufficient enough end goal, in my opinion. Having said that, for me, there is no end goal of Freemasonry. It's kind of like in the television show Angel. It's the effort, it's the work that matters. And the work of Freemasonry is trying to build a better world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Um, yes, and I think Jason puts it very well as well. It ultimately is a personal goal at the end of the day. Every Mason needs to find their own goal. That's why I've said in the past, right? Freemasonry, it's common experiences, it's common experiences with individual interpretations and individual goals and individual purposes, which is something I greatly admire. Um, yes, Freemasons are good people. At least we try to be. I don't always succeed in being a good person myself. I'm not going to pretend like I'm always a good person or I always succeed, because that's not the case. But I do try my best. Um, some knowledge can only be obtained by experience. By the same token, some um, bonds can exclusively be forged through experiences, right? What I mean by that is within our Masonic rituals and ceremonies, the reason we have them is it's a common experience that bonds us to one another. Um, well, not all the founding fathers of the United States were Freemasons. 13, if I recall correctly, were Freemasons. So most were not, but it was a very popular club to join. So a lot of people joined it, especially people who had civic interests, because Freemasonry it's a civic institution, it's about community. So obviously, if you care about community, you're going to potentially look for political leadership therein. Some Masons believe in Jesus. I mean, Freemasonry is not a religion. We have many Christian Freemasons who believe in Jesus. We have many Muslim Freemasons and Jewish Freemasons, etc., etc. Well, that's not true, Eddie. I would say that's not true. I think more than that can bond men. I don't know who Maximilian Robespierre is, um, so I cannot speak to that. I've never heard of him before. I don't even know if he was a Freemason or not. He was a lawyer and former president. Was he even a Freemason? He was around at the time when he could have been, in theory. Um, says here he was a capricious Freemason. I don't know what that even means. The cult of the supreme being. I don't know if he was a Freemason or not. because it looks like the description of him here is capricious Freemason, which makes me wonder if he joined and then left. I mean, I don't think, again, I do not see Freemasonry as being anti-Catholic. I've never heard or seen any indications that it's anti-Catholic in all of my Masonic travels. Now, I don't see everything within Freemasonry. However, I've never seen anything that would indicate. I've never heard any Mason speak um, ill of the Catholics. It looks like Robespierre is too radical, and when he took control in 1793, he launched the purge. It looks like I have to read more about him, but it looks like he was not a particularly active Freemason, is what it looks like. It looks like he, if anything, might have been causing trouble within Freemasonry. It, so I don't know enough about him to say. Um, it looks like there's a lot of different types of, almost like in England, you had, for example, the ancients and the moderns. It looked like there was a ton of different groups all claiming to be Masonic at the time. Which ones were and which ones were not is um, very questionable. Well, Freemasonry does not conflict with Catholicism. Freemasonry welcomes Catholics. I know many Catholic Freemasons, and they love the craft and they get along in it very well, as I know many of any other faith, right? So Freemasonry does not conflict with Catholicism. However, the Catholic Church has put out edicts that are anti-Masonic. I think the term might be condemning Freemasonry, but that's the leadership within the Catholic Church. Not every Catholic follows those edicts. In terms of why the Catholic Church put out those edicts, there are a lot of different reasons, but I always suggest reading Humanum Genus from Pope Leo the 13th. It's the wrong, it's, he gets a lot of it wrong. He doesn't understand what Freemasonry is. But I think that's where it's coming from primarily. Um, well, I mean, the French and English were in conflict. The English and Americans were in conflict. Americans and Canadians were in conflict. Human nature is conflicting by definition. Freemasonry is not going to be able to change human nature, though I'd like to think it can at least, square it up a little bit and make those conflicts easier to handle and easier to resolve. Um, there are some interesting Masonic communities. I mean, Freemasonry in the Philippines is huge. I was in the Philippines visiting some Masonic brothers, and it was incredible. It was Manila, beautiful place, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful place. Um, we do require oxygen, creator. Actually, no, we don't. We can't survive in the vacuum of space, but don't tell anybody. Freemasonry is not a religion, Ace. We have Freemasons of various religious denominations. To be a Freemason, you must believe in a supreme being. However, every Mason can decide for himself what that supreme being is. Or you don't even need to have a religion to be a Freemason per se. You can believe in something in a more spiritual sense, but not follow any particular religious dogmas. I love Star Trek. Lord Zebra, I'm a big Star Trek fan. TNG is my favorite. I've kind of grown out of watching it. Now my bag is scary movies. That's what I love. Um, why, Ricardo? Why is the word secrecy repugnant? Would you give me your bank account information, your social insurance number, or is that secret information? But if you don't like the term secret, use the term private. So most Masonic lodges define the term supreme being so broadly that people might consider myself an atheist because I don't believe in a supreme being in the traditional sense of like a church or religion. But I still got in. There is also orders in France that do allow atheists to join, but not in North America. Um, Well, first, that's not the case. That's not an understanding of what that means, Leah Smith. However, let me ask you this. What would happen if you removed the 30th, 31st, and 32nd degree from Freemasonry? Why is that important? Why do those degrees matter? What influence, power, control, or otherwise do those degrees provide you, within Freemasonry? Um, The Blue Lodge is this there. Well, I guess I'm a simpleton. I'm not just a Blue Lodge member for the record. But I guess I'm a simpleton. Yes, Martin Freemasonry is online, but you need to keep in mind if you're not a Freemason, there's a lot of accurate information online. There's also a lot of bullshit online. And if you don't know what is what or which is which, the problem with that becomes you're not going to know what's real and what's fake. And you're also not going to be able to interpret the information. It's a bit like if I go to research medical information and I see something saying like, the blood results showed a 25% increase in proteins of, X93. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's good or bad. I have no idea how to interpret that. If I'm a stupid person who thinks I'm a smart person, what I will do is I will interpret it, in whatever way suits what I already believe. If I'm a smart person, I will go to a doctor and ask them what it means. Freemasonry is the same way. Even the word Lucifer, as it pops up in Albert Pike's More Than Dogma, people don't know what that means. They don't know to what he's referring. They don't have the knowledge. So they just make an assumption based on their own lack of understanding. There's nothing more dangerous than a stupid person who thinks they're a smart person. That's where the danger comes from, right? And when you're reading something and you're not interpreting it correctly, that's very uncool, right? So that's very dangerous. Um, exactly, as Leah Smith says, by General Albert Pike 33rd, Leah Smith does not know what she is talking. I'm assuming I could be wrong, what she's talking about, but is too dumb to recognize she doesn't know what she's talking about. Um, Supreme beings exist, I'm sure. I believe in a supreme being. I just believe that everybody has the right to understand the supreme being as he or she so chooses. No worries, Ace. Um, Hello, Dylan. Thank you for being here. Um, yes, Sassy, we have the Order of Women Freemasons. They have been around in England longer than women have had the right to vote. There's also the Order of Eastern Star. There's also in France co-masonry. You don't have to donate money. Freemasonry does not take donations. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to donate to the lodge, you could. I suppose they wouldn't complain about getting some money, but that's not how it works. There are dues that you need to pay. They can be $25 a year, it's some of the cheapest I've seen, to a few hundred a year. It depends on the lodge itself and how expensive it is. So, for example, if the lodge meets in New York City and rents space in New York, it's probably more expensive than, say, a lodge in small town Texas, for example. But like that should be the last thing you're right. So, for example, if anybody ever contacts you and says, "We want you to be a Mason, just you need to pay us $500," that's a scam, right? Before they should even talk about money, they should get to know you, learn more about you, why you want to join. You should get to know more about them. And after that, once they give you the application, that's when you start to talk about the dues and initiation fees and all that jazz. But Freemasonry is not based on how much money you have or don't have or whether you can pay. That's not how it works. I mean, so the anti-Masonic movement, there's been many anti-Masonic movements in the world. In the 1800s in America, in Nazi Germany, and all this areas overrun by the Third Reich. There's anti-Masonic movements. There's anti-Masonic movements today in the Middle East, for example. Freemasonry has not been infiltrated by Zionism. Zionism, to my understanding of it, is a political ideology. Freemasonry is not political. There are some Freemasons who I'm sure are Zionists. There are some Freemasons who are not. Freemasons do not run the country, talkative parrot. Being a Freemason means you're a Freemason. It may mean nothing to you resolving, but it means something to me, and that's good enough. Yes, the 33rds are the secrets of the universe. Um, I mean, I don't know enough about his politics to say. He looks to me like somebody who was an on again, off again Freemason, or somebody who may have actually started his own order and claimed it to be Masonic? Whether it was or not is a question for another day. I would say, at the very least, sassy. Somebody who is smart recognizes that they're not smart. That's the old Pluto. No, sorry, not um, Pluto's the dog. Not Plato. Socrates. That's the old Socrates idea, right? The wisest people recognize how little they know, especially about things in their life where they're not have experience or an expert. So, for example, again, I don't know anything about medicine, but that doesn't make me stupid. What would make me stupid, though, is if me not knowing anything about medicine, I decide to argue with my doctor about medical treatment and tell him all the reasons that he's wrong. He went to medical school, he's my doctor. I should have enough humility to understand when I'm out of my depth. Same reason why, if I'm reading, for example, a medical journal online, I should have enough humility to recognize when I'm out of my depth. What I would say, sassy, smart, or sassy Sarah, excuse me, is the ultimate example of intelligence is humility. Humility, recognizing that you don't understand as much as you think you do. Again, for me, I've been a Freemason for almost 20 years. I've traveled around the world. I've been to over 1,000 meetings. I've earned a level of maybe arrogance when it comes to talking about Freemasonry. Not full, because there's things I don't know. Like Caesar provided me with a couple of really valid and valuable pieces of information I did not know about on this stream. So there's definitely times where I can learn more, and I don't know it all. But I would say humility is a sign of intelligence as a general rule. Um, yes, we do know the secrets of the universe. Um, France became monarchy in 1830. That was catastrophic, and this led to the invasion of Algeria. I mean, if I recall correctly, it was Napoleon, right, who was leading the invasion of Algeria. Napoleon seems to have had very mixed feelings about Freemasonry. I've always been under the impression that, as a general rule, he supported Freemasonry because he made his brothers like the grand masters of the Masonic lodges in France. But I had heard privately he was kind of derisive of them. So I don't know. Yes, Tyler, the perfect storm is not incorrect. The secret is there is no secret. Um, there's many different branches of Freemasonry. It's very hard to know how many branches there are because there's, Scottish Rite, York Rite, youth groups, Demolay, Rainbow, Eastern Star, Shrine. Um, there's clandestine organizations. There's Grand Orient. Um, there's so many different groups and organizations and branches of Freemasonry. Freemasonry is really more of an umbrella term, and it's all decentralized. There's Prince Hall, right? There's Memphis Mizraim in Europe. It gets really interesting, but really complicated. Um, we do not do that, Tyler, the perfect storm. I know Prince Hall. Prince Hall is an awesome Masonic body. I've also, though, sat and lodged with many black men, as well as Asian, African American, European, South American. Prince Hall Freemasonry still exists, and they're a wonderful organization. And they did a ton of work in supporting African American and Black men, especially in America, but all around the world, during different times of segregation and racism. But you can, I know many, we do not segregate any men. They're welcome to join our Masonic lodges. And like I said, the third or fourth worshipful master I ever had in my Masonic lodge was a black guy. He was from Africa. He moved to Canada. He was a really cool dude, and he was in fact the worshipful master of the lodge. This is another example, Tyler, of you don't understand what you're talking about because you don't have the knowledge, which again is stupid. Even if you had said something to the effect of like, "I heard that Freemasons segregate. Is that true?" That's a different thing. Saying it like it's a fact is an indication that you're a stupid person because you don't understand what you're talking about. Um, well, Opus Synth Junkie. Um, I think I mean, I guess I would disagree with the premise of your question. In my experience, certainly in 2026, the most influential people are not Freemasons. Um, I mean, how would you define most influential? Um, I guess give me some names of who you consider to be the most influential, and I'll tell you whether they're Masons or not, but to my knowledge, they are not. Um, if they wanted $20 to start from you, that might be a scam. If a Freemason is saying, give me $20 and you can join, that's not how it should work. The application process should start first. Um, and I do appreciate OK Say Bien. Seems like they got some really cool French history going on in the chat. Thoughts on trans people? No, I mean, I guess I don't have any thoughts on trans people other than they're people. And if I sat in lodge next to a trans person, then good for me, good for them. They're my brothers, they're my sisters, they're part of the family, or they're part of our communities. Put it that way. Genghis Khan was not a Freemason. He really couldn't have been. I mean, I just looked up his years. He died 1227, so he died about 500 years before Freemasonry existed. Um, I mean, I don't know elite bloodline any examples of Freemasons being. So I've been a Mason for 20 years. In that time, I've met maybe three Masons who were actually one Mason who, sorry, two Masons who were lawyers. I guess three if you count myself, and maybe five Masons who were police officers. Two of them were retired when I met them, so I don't necessarily know what you're talking about. Um, 33rd degree don't worship anything, Scott. It's a misunderstanding of what Freemasonry is and a misunderstanding of how it works. Freemasonry is not a religion. We don't worship anything. I know the answer you want to give me because you've been reading way too much Albert Pike and not understanding what's being said. Um, Ricardo, it depends, but I usually give the date of the start of Freemasonry as 1634 in Scotland. So approximately almost 400 years, actually, coming up to almost 400 years. Um, Freemasonry is not a mystic religion. Freemasonry is not a religion. Um, no worries, Legend Jesus. Legend Jesus. I'm just happy that you're here. I appreciate you being. I appreciate you being here very much. Um, no, it hasn't. Ricardo, Freemasonry has not been around. I mean, I don't know who the patriarchs are, but it's about 400 years old. Um, I mean, 7V4Z, please like and subscribe. None of that stuff seems likely to me. Hiram is a mythological figure. He built the first temple, or he was the architect. The pyramids were built by the Egyptians. They were built by primarily slave labor, I'm sure, but also Freemasons or stonemasons, excuse me, stonemasons, men working with stone, by definition. This fool, Freemasonry is not Illuminati. Illuminati is a different organization that really doesn't exist in any meaningful way anymore, at least in any relevant way. Um, well, thank you, Nuts. Seven, I do not. Famously, Chevalier, let me just see if I can get his name. Chevalier Andrew Michael Ramsey, 7V4Z, he considered the Templars, or actually used the term Crusaders, he considered them to be the founders of Freemasonry. I do not. I think the founders of Freemasonry are stone Masonic guilds and the men who first joined as speculative Freemasons. Um, yes, Trump is not a Freemason, Opus Synth Junkie. That is 100% true. Yes, all I know is I know nothing from Socrates, as Tyler says. Um, Mikhail, please hit like and subscribe. Scott Tellis, please hit like and subscribe. Plunder achiever. Since you must believe in a higher being, I mean, I I would not say um, I necessarily believe in evil beings per se. I believe in weakness. I think very often what we ascribe to be evil is actually weakness. And I think it's possible to grow stronger both mentally and physically. I'm going to be growing stronger very soon because I am going to be taking part in the 2,000 push-up challenge, 2,000 push-ups over 23 days. First person, Victoria, you're not wrong. Death and taxes are always, are permanent, at least with death. The fact that that's always going to be around is something that Freemasons are aware of and actually encourage maybe some contemplation upon, which is a very good thing, I think. I think we need to contemplate our mortality. It's a healthy. Uh, um, Bukowski, somebody who I've actually grown to enjoy quite a bit. Um, there are parallels, but there's not a connection. It's more just different people all taking from the same well, if that makes any sense. Um, I'm trying to find the quote from Charles Bukowski um, because I really liked it, and I think it's Masonic in nature somehow. Let me see if I can find it. You have to die a few times before you can really live. Charles Bukowski said that. Every Mason understands what that means. General, the criteria to join is you need to be of the correct age, at least 18 or 21, depending on the jurisdiction. You need to believe in a supreme being. And you need to approach the Masonic Lodge and express your interest in joining. You need to take the first step of approaching them. And after that, you go through the process. I don't think there is a ruler of this world. I think there's just different interests. Different countries have leadership, right? Different countries have a president, a prime minister who are leaders within their country. I don't believe there is an overarching leader of the whole world or ruler of the whole world. Um, well, WBK Beats, I hope you'll consider maybe talking to them if you're ever interested in joining. Every Freemason has his own supreme being, Scott Tellis. For me, the supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through geometry. But if you're Christian, then it's, I guess, Jesus. If you're Muslim, it's Allah. If you're, whatever your faith is and your religion is, supreme being is a placeholder, which allows every Mason to understand the supreme being based on his own religious or spiritual beliefs and practices. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't this fool. You'd have to join to find out. I'll take it because Bruce Willis and Matt Damon are both very handsome. Um, I mean, I suppose maybe some people will come to a point where they consider AI to be a supreme being. I don't know how I feel about that. I like to view it as a technological piece of equipment and a technological tool. Um, you can join WBK Beats. I mean, after the third degree, you can choose to join, let's say, the York Rite, including the Knights Templars. You can join the Scottish Rite, you can join the Shrine, or you can remain as a third degree. It's completely up to you. When you say here, General, I assume you mean here as in within Freemasonry. The highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. That's the hierarchy you need to remember. Master Mason is the highest degree. Then there's offices. The highest office is the Worshipful Master, though some would say secretary. He is the one responsible for governing and ruling the lodge. Um, and that's how it works. A lot of people will say, oh, 33rds are the highest degree in Freemasonry. That's just not the case. That's not how it works. Well, it's more the humility to recognize that everybody has their own versions of a supreme being. Everybody's coming in with different traditions, persuasions, denominations. It's the humility of accepting everybody's belief as a civic institution, as opposed to the ego of expecting people to believe what you believe, which is, I think, where the ego comes in. Um, so, no, Thomas, the 33rd degree is not the highest degree in Freemasonry, it's the third degree. Um, Despite what some may say otherwise. I mean, we probably can't comprehend a supreme being. Certainly, God, is probably something that's in some ways incomprehensible, though I think we can try to understand it, again, through a rational study of the universe and through use of reason. Um, what are the benefits of spending time? You're spending time with people you enjoy spending time with. You're also trying to build a better world. You may develop skills, memorization skills, leadership skills. Certainly, you'll be able to run a meeting well, and know how to, run motions, things like that, which is actually a very valuable skill to have. Depends, Brandon, on how active you want to be. It's kind of like being a member of a gym. How often do you want to go to the gym? At minimum, it's usually at least three. It's at least once or twice a month is when the lodges meet. How often you choose to attend a stated meeting, really it depends on how often you are, active within a lodge and how often you want to show up. Um, but usually once a month at a minimum is when there's a stated meeting. Well, I'm not an occultist, Scott. So, I mean, I guess what I'd say is we live in communities. Communities have a variety of religious beliefs represented therein. It's not my place to say which one is correct. And because Freemasonry is a civic institution, we should be and are expected to be responsive to and responsive of and in some ways of service to the different faiths. That includes welcoming them into our organization. Hello, Silence and Violence. Thank you for being here. Well, we are neither evil nor dogs, John. Um, I mean, that's what I do. I'm trying to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession, and doing so, um, what I'm doing is, I have this stream, I have these chats. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Consider doing a super chat, just 99 cents, helps out big time. Oof, not as many as should, Tyler the Perfect Storm. I guess I'd have to know more in terms of what you mean by define, take it seriously, right? Like, I need to know what you mean by that, because I guess every Mason would say they take it seriously. If they're not showing up for meetings, they might say they don't have the time or can't, but they want to. It's tough because every Mason, but that's true for life as well. Like, I've never been at a job site where not everybody said they were taking the job seriously. It's just how some defined it was very different than how others defined it. It helped me by making me feel closer to my grandfather, General Subitu. It also helped me develop or it reminded me of certain excellencies of character, especially temperance, which is a very valuable skill that I don't always possess. And so Freemasonry kind of helps me understand the value of temperance. Well, Buddha Toast, I do look like a cartoon character. Please hit like and subscribe. Thomas, my view of the Illuminati is back in the day, I didn't care about them much one or the other and had no view of them. Now they're kind of annoying me because everybody always asks me about them and they don't even really exist anymore. And yet I have to keep answering questions about them. So the Illuminati are a pain in my butt. I will say that. Um, I mean, well, but by that token, you're an occultist for keeping your bank account information private, right? People who work at Pepsi are occultists for keeping the recipe for Pepsi Cola secret. At the end of the day, if a cult is simply hidden knowledge, then sure. The problem is occult and occultism has a more negative connotation for a lot of people, and that's unfortunate. Um, I am very active, that is for sure. I, Timothy, I'm hoping you will drive your finger to hitting the like and subscribe button. I don't drive, I use public transit or my wheelchair. Well, for heaven's sakes, don't share. Don't? The point is, don't share your social insurance number or your bank account information. That's incredibly dangerous to share. That's the point. You shouldn't share it. And if you're saying you'd be comfortable sharing it, then I guess what I'd say is others wouldn't be, and they should. That's smart to not want to share it. That doesn't mean they're occultists, at least in a negative sense. It just means there are elements of them they wish to keep private. No, Trader Barry, because I have no legs, but please hit like and subscribe. My nearest lodge is at the Windsor Masonic Temple. It's about 15-minute wheel. It's about 1 kilometer away from me. I would not be. The dark web is probably a nightmare. I have no interest in being on the dark web, that's for sure. Um, well, I don't mind being disabled. I was born this way, so it's not an issue for me. But I do hope you hit the like button and the subscribe button. Um, Help me get to 3,440 subs. 3,440 would be very helpful. Well, but salvation, Freemasonry makes no promises of salvation nor threats of damnation, right? That's not what Freemasonry is all about. Freemasonry is not about one's salvation nor damnation. If you want freedom through salvation, go to church. You're arguing a different space. It's kind of like you're almost would be getting mad at professional wrestling for being worked or being choreographed. That's what it's supposed to be, right? If you want a real fight, you go to UFC. If you want a real art form or real, like something worked or something choreographed, you go watch professional wrestling. You're asking Freemasonry to be something it's not. Freemasonry is not a religion, it's not a promise of salvation. Um, Well, so I didn't actually train in the wheelchair, right? Because I'm mobile off the chair. So I trained outside the chair. So I would get in the ring and I would do my push-ups and sit-ups and run the ropes. I'd actually shuffle step. I'd take the bumps and do all that jazz. More so than actually like quote unquote training in the wheelchair. But it was still a lot of fun. I learned a ton of really valuable things from my training. And I'm grateful for all the things that I learned. From my training. So yeah, it was something I'm incredibly proud of. Go Can-Am Professional Wrestling School. Um, I mean, I don't think Freemasonry is freedom from religion. Freemasonry is simply a different entity. Freemasonry is a civic organization, right? So being mad at Freemasonry for not offering salvation is showing you don't understand what Freemasonry is. It's like going to McDonald's and being mad they're not serving Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's like you're not looking for what you want in the right place. If anybody were to come to me and say, "How do I find salvation?" my response would be talk to a religious figure. If they ask me, maybe is there some good ways to live a better life here or help the community, I might say join a Masonic lodge. I did the junior warden's lecture. What are you doing awake, Dad? It's 1:15 in the morning where you are. Go to sleep. Yes, but what that supreme being is, not a there's no single supreme being. The supreme being I believe in may be different than the supreme being the brother next to me believes in, and that's a beautiful thing. Um, I am sharing it with everybody. I'm sharing it with you right now. I'm here talking on the channel. I don't know how much more I can share about Freemasonry than telling people to check it out. David, it is not satanic. Um, so you are incorrect. Unfortunately, there are some members that join because they believe it's Illuminati, and when they find out it's not, and all the conspiracies are incorrect, they get upset and leave. That really is partially, though, on the investigation committees to make sure the candidate is joining with that understanding of what Freemasonry actually is versus not. Well, I know who Bill Cooper is. However, Title of the Perfect Storm, if it works for you, more power to you, right? It's you need to find what works for you. Freemasonry works for me because I love it. So, um, I don't know the secrets of the universe. If I said that, I was being sarcastic, I'm sure. I know, private information about Freemasonry. If you want the secrets of the universe, I mean, I don't even know what that means. I like to think I know some things with the universe because I love science and I love NASA, for example. I'm always researching that stuff. Um, XCal, we do. We totally get secret tunnels to cut past traffic. Um, he was not Opus. He was not a Freemason. I do not believe he was a Illuminati either. I'm debating it I really don't want to because I hate this stuff and I hate talking about it. I hate conspiracies. I hate all this stuff. But I it keeps popping up in these chats. I may actually talk about the Epstein files and more particularly when Freemasonry or when the word Freemasonry is found in the files. It's found, to my knowledge, 14 times. I did a search. It's always in these weird historical documents about people, like, it doesn't implicate any Freemasons. To my knowledge, there are no Freemasons implicated in the Epstein files. There's one where some guy sent a text message asking about cathedral building and said he admired the Freemasons who built cathedrals, which right there shows a lack of understanding of what Freemasonry is. Freemasonry didn't build cathedrals, stonemasons built cathedrals. But the Epstein files unfortunately keep on popping up in my chat. So I don't know if I have to at some point talk about it. I don't want to because I hate conspiracy stuff, but maybe I'll have to at some point. It's interesting. Jon Stewart from The Daily Show was mentioned in the Epstein files. Like, so many random people have got mentioned in there. To my knowledge, no actual Freemasons were ever mentioned in the files. Um, well, I mean, I was probably being sarcastic, Scott. Freemasons don't know this. I don't even know what that means. What does it mean to know the secrets of the universe? Like, I don't know what that means. If you want to know the secrets of the universe, study Einstein, study the speed of light, study E equals mc squared. Um, that's not, it's, Freemasons don't know the secrets of the universe. We know, again, the secrets of Freemasonry aren't even secret, they're just private information. No different than a family recipe, which is the example I've used a million times. If you have a family recipe that's passed down from your grandparents to your parents to you, you're not going to share that with the public, not because there's anything nefarious or occult about the recipe, but rather because it's a family recipe and it's meant to be private. Um, I think you're talking about William Morgan. It was on a boat. We don't know for sure if that's what happened. For the record, he was a debtor. He was massively in debt. He may very well have just escaped to Canada to get out of paying his debts. Thank you, Scott. I like to think science is the answer, but I could be wrong. Samantha Watkins, I definitely need to study more sacred geometry. Sean Murphy, a Freemason, is a member of Masonic Lodge. Samantha, please hit like and subscribe. Yes, Justin T. Bowen, I did visit it and it was absolutely incredible. It was an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful building. Um, I did not have to provide the repast, thankfully. Somebody else took care of that. I just gave the lecture, which was great fun. So it was awesome, yeah. By the way, Dad, thank you for being here. I love you, but get yourself to sleep. Um, well, I mean, good for you, Scott. Some people like to maintain privacy. There's valid reasons to maintain privacy. Maintaining the bonds of brotherhood is a big part of it. Not the only reason, but one of them. Uh, no, Pat Wilderbeast Freemasonry do not worship Satan. I mean, other than the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses believe in a supreme being. Wait, is Jehovah's Witnesses the same as Mormonism? I always get those mixed up. If it's, I forget if it's the same. Well, thank you, Samantha. That's very kind of you. Yes, not just shoes. I got a Easter Island head. I'm also missing my legs, so I have no shoes. You're not just shoes. There you go. Okay, so if they're different, because I always get those mixed up, then to my knowledge, there's no connection between Jehovah's Witnesses and Freemasons other than you could be a Jehovah's Witness and be a Freemason. It would not be an issue. You believe in a supreme being. Um, uh, Alex, if you need help, got to contact me privately. I'm not going to cry you a river, but I am going to say you should hit the like and subscribe button. Um, Okay, that's cool. I mean, I don't know beyond the fact that they could join. Um, he was WK Beats. Joseph Smith was a Freemason before starting Mormonism. Um, Very active. I don't know how active he was in Freemasonry. certainly is very active when it comes to forming another religion. That's probably it's probably a very busy, time-consuming job. Um, we're going to give this gym another, let's say, 10 minutes. That'll be an hour and a half. Then I'm going to be going to sleep because I've got a busy day tomorrow. But I hope everybody is doing well, and thank you all for being here. I've heard that as well, but I'm not a Mormon myself, so I can't say. Satan does not run the Freemasons at Not Just Shoes. Hope you're playing about that as well. Nobody runs the Freemasons. Freemasonry is decentralized. Um, I mean, I personally am not a fan of that. I believe in blood donations. I also believe in organ donations. I make it very clear in all of my documents, like my will, my health card. Any chance I get, I remind people that I do want my organs to be donated. And I'll say that here. Please, if anything happens to me, get hit by a bus, knock on wood, any organs you can take them. I don't need them anymore. Um, I mean, I have no idea what you're saying, Opus Synth Junkie, but none of that sounds sensible to me. Good, Sean, and that's a perfect example of religious tolerance. You know, lovely people come from all different religions and backgrounds. No one particular religion or religious experience has a monopoly on either the good or the bad people within a society. If you need them, Rick, and if I don't need them, then I suppose sure. We do not just shoes. Freemasonry is not Jewish, nor do we pose as Jews. But I know Jewish Freemasons, wonderful people, wonderful parts of the craft. Hello, Barry. That is not true either, Opus. The crown does not control Freemasonry. The Queen, to my knowledge, was never a Freemason. She could have joined the Order of Women Freemasons, I suppose, but to my knowledge, she never did. What is the top, not just shoes? Define the top. Why is the 33rd degree the top? What does that mean? What does it mean to be a 33rd degree and the top? Because it shows me you do not understand Freemasonry, nor do you understand the quote-unquote hierarchy within Freemasonry. What power does a 33 have? What influence do they have? If I'm sitting next to a 33rd degree Mason in Lodge, do they have more power than me? Do they have a greater amount of votes than I do? Do they have more ability to speak than I do? What does it mean to be a 33rd degree, and what influence or power do you actually have? Um, I don't think the Queen is head of Odd Fellows. I could be wrong, but I don't believe so. I've never heard any Freemason mock Jesus, including 33rd degrees. Um, Accepting others as they are is a very valuable trait, Sean Murphy. I think that's a Freemason trait. Please hit the like and subscribe button. HVT. Hopefully, I'll become an influencer, though I hate that term. Um, Rick, for that, you got to join. Um, and then you'll learn. I never say, although you can find it online, to be honest. I am following, I guess, my truth as I understand it. I don't know what it means other members' beliefs. I mean, I follow my reason, I follow my judgment, I follow my observations, I follow my knowledge. I follow all those things with both a humility to know I could learn more and the arrogance of 20 years of experience and traveling around the world. It may mean that first person, it may not. For that, you got to join. Leo Taxil was a big old fraud, and his stupid hoax still haunts Freemasons to this day. Um, Got to be careful with gambling. That can cause a lot of problem for people. In what way? How am I their puppet? What do I do that indicates I am their puppet? What does that actually mean? What benefit would they get from that? Which is why maybe a good idea to not start, especially if you have an addictive personality or you're worried that you are going to have an addictive personality. Um, well, I mean, everything follows geometry, WK Beats. The universe follows geometry. That's why I talk about, for example, the Euclid Space Probe. It's a satellite traveling in space named after an ancient Greek mathematician, ancient Greek geometrician. Geometry is everywhere in pi, which is something found in nature, in the Pythagorean theorem. Geometry is part of the universe. Gravity is geometry, according to the general theory of relativity. Um, yes, I just had one yesterday, Godric. I just had a meeting yesterday. I'm gonna have one tomorrow as well. I mean, I cannot speak of that. I've not heard that story before. Sacred. I mean, geometry helps society because it demonstrates rationality and order in the universe, and B, it makes sure buildings will not fall down. If you don't know geometry, good luck keeping your buildings at 90 degrees. They're going to be at an angle and tip over. Um, we do not mock human sacrifices. There's no guarantee there's a Bible in the room. It could be a Quran, it could be a Torah, depending on where you're at or your jurisdiction. It could be an eagle feather. I'm not going to give specifics about Masonic rituals, but what I always say is one thing Freemasonry does remind us of very well is the value of contemplating our mortality, which is a very valuable thing to contemplate. Charles Bukowski, who was not a Freemason to my knowledge, Charles Bukowski once said, "You must die several times before you can actually live." Freemasons know what that means. It's not literal, right? None of this stuff is literal. It's allegorical. It's symbolic. As I always say, though, I don't give any specifics about Masonic rituals. What I always say is I've never seen anything in a Masonic ritual or ceremony that would be either dangerous, illegal, or against one's civic, religious, or familial responsibilities. Yes, Charles Bukowski, you have to die a few times before you can really live. Charles Bukowski, pretty good poet, wrote some really good stuff. My thoughts on AI. I am one of those people who's kind of pro technology. And I think AI is a technological tool. I am a third degree Master Mason. I'm also an 18th degree Scottish Rite Mason. I'm also a worshipful master of a lodge and a past master of several lodges as well. Hieroglyph may not have existed at all. My suspicion, to be honest, is he's a mythological figure or a legendary figure. What does it mean to be a 33rd degree, not just shoes? That's the thing you haven't answered yet. What does it mean to be a 33rd degree? What influence, rank, power, ability does being a 33rd degree get you? Do you have any more control over a lodge? What if you are a 33rd degree? Can you go to York Rite meetings? Can you go to Shrine meetings? Do you get to run a Blue Lodge or a Craft Lodge? Do you get money from the Blue Lodges or the Craft Lodges? What does a 33rd actually mean? You not explain that to me because the truth is you don't know. Um, well, he's a biblical figure you're referring to. Again, was he real or not? I don't know. He was in the Bible. Um, okay, so even if that was true, which it's not for the record, and I know it's not because I've done my researches, but even if that was true, which it's not, it shows a lack of understanding. What difference would that make in terms of, again, what would happen if a 33rd degree goes to a third degree? Like it goes to a lodge meeting. He has no more power or control in a in a blue lodge, excuse me. He can't outrule the master. He doesn't get any more votes than the mason sitting next to him as a third degree. He could be considered not as high level as a York Rite Mason. What about the Shrine? What about Eastern Star? What about the youth groups? What about other jurisdictions? What if he's a 33rd degree in Canada and he goes to Northern Masonic jurisdiction or overseas? Aside from the fact that you're just wrong in your premise, you're also wrong in assuming being a 33rd degree is something special within Freemasonry. They're great dudes and it's special for the members who have them, but it does not speak for all of Freemasonry, nor does it grant you any authority or power within Freemasonry over, let's say, a craft lodge. Um, you get different secrets. However, those secrets do not reflect on Freemasonry. They reflect on the specific degree that you're getting, right? So, for example, or at least an interpretation, if you join the York Rite or the Shrine, you are given secrets. However, in some cases, those secrets may contradict what you get in the Scottish Rite. Which one is correct? Which one is incorrect? Right? It's more about not. It's not that either is more correct or less correct. They're different. degree structures. They're different organizations within Freemasonry. One is not higher than the other, and neither of them are higher or more important than the first three degrees. Put it this way, if you got rid of the first three degrees of Freemasonry, Freemasonry would cease to exist. If you got rid of Scottish Rite or York Rite, Freemasonry would continue to exist. The foundation upon which everything rests are the craft lodges and the first three degrees. So, to the extent that anything is the highest or the most important degree within Freemasonry, it's the Master Mason degree. Freemasons are not um, killing anybody, nor are they taking an oath to Satan. You're wrong on both accounts, not just shoes. Yes, I think Excal is correct. I think you need some help. Well, they're secrets, private informations. Philosophical teachings, Rick, is probably the best description for the private information or the secrets, right? Really, what it's about is creating bonds of brotherhood through shared experiences and shared knowledge, right? Um, I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, right? When it comes to why we have our rituals and ceremonies, ultimately, there's two ways to create bonds of brotherhood. You create bonds of brotherhood through shared experiences or shared knowledge. The private nature of our Masonic ceremonies and our Masonic rituals helps maintain those bonds by creating shared experiences and shared knowledge, which, if you want to get that knowledge and information, you need to join Freemasonry yourself. Um, Yes, Excal. Stop watching YouTube videos at night, except for this one. Watch my YouTube videos at night. Don't watch a bunch of nonsense online, though. Um, I know about the 32nd, 33rd. I may not be a member, but that doesn't mean I don't know about it, for the record. Um, Having said that, what I'd say is I rely on my experience as well, my thousands of Masonic meetings all around the world, sitting in lodge with 33rd degrees, attending 33rd degree events, and my recognition. I know what Freemasonry is based on my experiences within and my knowledge of it. Once you've been to 1,000 meetings in 20 something years, then you can, speak to me. Um, Jose, well, thank you, Captain Cake. Freemasonry is a civic or community organization that has been in existence for about 400 years. By the way, Scottish Rite and this 33rd degree stuff, it eventually popped up a couple hundred years, or about 100, well, let's say about 50 years after Freemasonry first began, respective Freemasonry. I'm also, um, um, where are you, Captain? I forget where you went. Captain Cake, was that the name? Also, Captain Cake, I am passionate about people hitting the like and subscribe button. There are no bloodlines. That's bullshit. I've known many 33rd degree Masons who have no familial connections to Freemasonry at all. They're the first of their family to be Freemasons. This whole bloodline stuff is baloney. Again, it's people not understanding Freemasonry, looking up a bunch of nonsense online. Um, Thank you, Captain Cake. That's very kind of you. Yes, you need a special blood type. The special blood type is being awesome, which I am. I joined the same way everybody joins. I wrote a letter to the Masonic Lodge. Now, in 2026, you could, instead of writing a letter, send an email, give a phone call, or just knock on the door. I expressed my interest in joining and going from there. Well, so Freemasonry in general started in Scotland in 1634 is likely the first speculative Freemasons in Scotland, and then it came to England. The Grand Lodge was formed in 1717. Um, True Freemasons, yes, we don't test blood, for the record. I don't want a bunch of conspiracy theorists on here telling me that we're testing people's blood. We do not. You can be any blood type and join Freemasonry. Many Freemasons, though, it's interesting, are very active blood donors. I know one Freemason who donated blood over 200 times, to his credit. I know you're joking, Pikachu. It's great to have you here. Thank you for being here. I hope that you will hit that like and subscribe button if you're new to the stream. Anybody watching this, PB. I mean, it started with stonemasons. Going back, I mean, if Solomon's temple existed, it may be mythological or theological, right? But certainly it started with stonemasons historically, going back. I mean, you can say going back to the pyramids, you can say going back to, um, our ancient human ancestors who were shaping things out of stone. But that's stonemasonry. Freemasonry evolved from stonemasonry in the Middle Ages. So there were no Freemasons in ancient Egypt or Solomon's time or whatever it is. Rather, the Freemasons or speculative Masons first were created or first, formed in 1634 would be the earliest example of speculative Freemasons. Um, well, thank you, Colt. I guess I hope you don't mind. I know my voice is, not the best voice ever, but I hope it's not terrible having it ingrained in your mind. Um, yes, thank you, Pikachu, for being here. Alexander the Great. I mean, Alexander the Great was way before Freemasonry's time. Although, again, he definitely was, you could argue he promoted stonemasonry. I think as he was traveling, he brought stonemasons with him to help build his forts and to build his, whatever needed to be built to transport his pretty massive army. Prince Hall Freemasonry is awesome. I love Prince Hall Freemasonry. Maybe not just shoes. You think you know more than you do, and as a consequence of that, um, you're not hearing the truth of what I'm saying. Um, why would I want to be a 33rd when I'm happy to be a third? And I'm 18th degree Scottish Rite as well. And I'm also a worshipful master. It's a pretty big deal, I would think. Um, Oh yeah, a lot of Freemasons hold Masonic blood drives throughout America, throughout Canada. Freemasonry and blood donations have actually always been really, really well integrated and really well connected. I once heard somewhere, though I need to double check this just to make sure, that, well, if I'm trained to lie to outsiders, what are you doing here, not just shoes, other than leading a very not good life? Freemasonry, I read somewhere that Freemasonry actually, the first blood donors were actually Freemasons. I don't know for 100% if that's the case, but it wouldn't shock me because Freemasonry, one of the coolest things about it is how active it's been when it comes to blood donations throughout Canada, America, and England. Um, yes, that was the one, Barry Pulaski, where the first speculative Masons joined in 1634. Um, you can be a 33rd if you're invited to be a 33rd. It has nothing to do with birth dates or bloodlines or any of that baloney. Um, Apparently, my sleep cycle is terrible because I'm up at 2:40 in the morning. I would go to sleep, but I got 56 people watching me right now. By the way, to everybody watching this, I hope you'll consider a super chat. I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I don't know the band Overkill. Legend, I mean, I don't know how long it's been. Give them time, but maybe give them a phone call. Um, I mean, that's a political question made medically assisted induced dying, I think it's called. I can speak for myself as someone who's seen people with, for example, cancer and see, the state they get to in the end. I can understand people wanting that and hoping for that option to be available to them, even if they would never want to take advantage of it. Um, well, Freemasonry was established in Scotland in 1634, but then in 1717, the first Grand Lodge in England was formed. Um, I mean, I don't know if it's all over Hollywood. Give me an example. What are some examples of Masonic symbology all over Hollywood movies? Um, I know some, like it's in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Um, it's in Prisoners, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. Every single movie. All right, not just shoes. You are a foolish person looking for confirmation bias, probably because you're leading a not great life. I would hope that maybe you talk to somebody and get some help because you clearly got some conspiracy issue nonsense happening with you. If every movie has Masonic symbolism, at that point, you don't know what you're talking about. Um, we are offering, I mean, I guess what I'd say is 8 out of 10, that's still bullshit. That's insane. Not just shoes. You don't know what you're talking about. If you think 80% of movies have Masonic symbolism, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, look, some do. The movie From Hell starring Johnny Depp, Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen, Prisoners, Man Who Would Be King. Um, I'm trying to think of others off the top of my head. The fact that I can't should be a sign. I mean, there's a movie called The Freemason, starring the dude from The Hobbit or the dude from Lord of the Rings. Um, oh, a U-Turn, I think, starring Jennifer Lopez. So, but 8 out of 10 is insanity. Um, yes, there are within Freemasonry lesser lights. I'm not going to tell you what they are. Well, the checkerboard floor is in a lot of movies in general. Oh, Killers of the Flower Moon had Masonic symbolism in it as well. I know that. Never saw the movie, so I just heard about it. That can't be true, not just shoes. I've never done the research on every address in every movie adding up to 33. That can't be true. And 13 is not a Masonic number. So Eyes Wide Shut, believe me, those things happen if the things that happened in Eyes Wide Shut happened in a Masonic lodge, I would not be attending Masonic lodges. That's not why I joined. Um, Forrest Gump doing the sign of what is the sign of Baphomet? I never heard of Baphomet until I started live streaming, and people like Not Just Shoes were telling me I worship Baphomet. I don't know who Baphomet is, nor what this sign is. Gareth, welcome. Gareth, good to have you back. Thank you for being here. It's been a while since I've seen you. I feel like it's been a minute. How's it going for you? I hope you're doing well, and thank you for being here. I don't know if you saw. Um, my favorite movie is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, for the record. All right, well, let's try this one then. Nightmare on Elm Street house address. So the house address in Nightmare on Elm Street, which is my favorite movie, actually Part 4 and 5 are my favorite movies, but we'll just use Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 because the address that you see is 1428. So 1 plus 4 plus 2 plus 8. So that equals 15. Doesn't equal 13 or 33. Let's try 1 times 4 times 2 times 8. That equals 64, which is not 33 or 13. I don't even know if you could get 13 or 33 from 1428 Elm Street. I don't think Castaway has Masonic symbolism. I mean, I haven't seen that movie in years. I vaguely remember it. I don't think it has Masonic symbolism. If you want to argue there's an allegory within Freemasonry about the importance of hope, and Castaway represents that, I guess you could argue that's the case. Um, Gematria, for heaven's sakes. I'm going to do Gematria calculator, even though this sounds like a bunch of insanity to me. Okay, 1428. So according to this, the words, I don't see the numbers 13 or 33 popping up when I put it into a gematria calculator. Well, I think Catholicism has conflicted with Freemasonry throughout history. I've never heard of any Masons speaking ill of Catholicism. Freemasonry welcomes men of all different faiths and beliefs, including, I know, Catholic Freemasons. Um, oh, I'm doing it wrong. Well, there you go. Of course, I'm doing it wrong. It could just be that you are struggling with your life and finding conspiracy nonsense in order to fulfill perhaps some challenges that you're facing. My suggestion is you talk to somebody about the challenges that you have and how to make yourself a better life and stop focusing on nonsense like the idea that every number in a movie adds up to 13 or 33. Um, I mean, I have no issue with the Catholic Church. Again, I think, Freemasonry belongs in the civic space. The Catholic Church belongs in the Freemasonry belongs in the civic space. The Catholic Church belongs in the community space. They serve different purposes. Again, my example is whenever anybody knocks Freemasonry for not being religious or not offering salvation, my answer is always that's like going to McDonald's and being mad they don't sell Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? The problem with that is it's different services. You're looking for different things from these organizations, and you need to keep that in mind. I don't know if they don't contradict each other because, again, they're different. They serve different purposes. So, again, they don't contradict each other any more than KFC and McDonald's contradict each other. They serve different things, they have different purposes, but that doesn't mean that they are in conflict or they contradict. Um, I do not know what Black Popes is or what that refers to. I can't tell. It sounds vaguely racist, but I don't know if it is or not. I also do not know what a law pope is. We do not run psyops, Freemasons. In fact, one of our instructions, going back all the way to 1723, is that we are to be respectful of the civic magistrates and communities in which we live. Um, I've met many Catholics, Ace, good people. No issue with the Catholic faith at all. No issues with Knights of Columbus, for that matter. Um, do you believe in Jesus is the Son? Well, I'm not a Christian, but I know many Freemasons who do believe I believe Jesus was a real historical figure. I know many Masons who are Christians and believe Jesus is the Son of God, as I know many Muslim Freemasons and Jewish Freemasons, etc., and Hindu, Sikh, indigenous, spiritual like myself, even a Wiccan, Wiccan Freemason. I guess I would describe myself as maybe spiritual. Like, I don't have a particular faith. I've said it before, but when it comes to the Supreme Being, I would define the Supreme Being as the rational nature of the universe as understood through the application of geometry and science. So that is a higher being I believe in. I guess you can define that as you will. Well, they're not religious Masons, they're just Masons, but they have their own personal religious beliefs, right? Freemasonry is not a religion. Um, I've never used Pigpen. I've seen a cipher in old school books. I actually saw a cipher even in The Lost Symbol, but I've never used it. Um, I guess I believe in a God that is in some ways science, is the best way to describe it. Um, I don't think necessarily anybody had to create that. I'm not one who automatically opposes the idea of an infinite universe. I've heard the arguments against it about like first cause, but I'm very I don't I think the universe might be infinite. I don't think it necessarily had to have a causal creator. Um, well, I don't think anybody creates science. I think science is the observation and how we then science is not create. I guess humans create science, right? Humans Science is the way that we as humans observe the universe, measure, and then create predictions based on those observations and measurements. I don't think so. Why does it have to start somewhere? I understand the theory of infinite regress, but why? Um, the universe may, in fact, just be infinite. I don't know for sure. And by the way, we're getting into my personal opinions. I've said it a million times. Freemasonry, right? I know Freemasons who would believe that would believe in a literal interpretation of Genesis down to the entire universe being formed in 7 days, to some who are more maybe believe in Jesus but interpret the Bible more metaphorically, and everything in between. Um, Please don't forget, take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for all being here. I hope you're all doing well. It's been a great stream, but I think I'm going to be ending the stream very soon. So, some Masons believe in that. I've heard that expression before. It's not a very common expression, at least with me within Freemasonry. Um, it's not an exclusive thing to Freemasonry either, right? To my understanding, this idea of as above, so below, usually what it means is this idea of whatever, I mean, it's almost in some ways a Catholic dogma thing as well, right? Which everybody bores. This idea of like whatever is within heaven, we should try to create here on earth as best as we can. Actually, I'm not a fan of him. This isn't a what's the word I'm looking for? This isn't I'm not saying I agree with him on almost anything. This isn't me supporting his ideas, but this guy on YouTube by the name of Michael Knowles, he has a quote on his Twitter, on his X, which I'm going to read. Michael Knowles said, "As often as this life's idle show tries to charm you, transport yourself in mind to paradise. Try to be now what you will be hereafter." That's another way of saying as above, so below. Hereafter you will be above. So as above, as you will be hereafter, try to be now, which is below, here on earth. So that's a good way to understand that expression. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him. I'm not, I think a lot of things he says is wrong, but that quote did remind me of this idea of as above, so below. And I even do that with myself, even though I don't precisely believe in an afterlife. I try to think to myself when I'm having a bad day, look, eventually I'm going to be in the hereafter, which might mean I don't exist in this way anymore. So I should try to, at least while I'm here, be grateful that I get to be here, and try to take the fact that sooner or later I'm going to be leaving this mortal coil as kind of a way to bring myself peace, and not sweat the small stuff, not sweat the little stuff. I don't think it has to be created, is the point. But I guess, again, I would use the Michael Knowles. It's not a Michael Knowles quote. I think it was St. Augustine who said it, but it was on Michael Knowles' Twitter bio. And I think it's a very good way to look at this idea of as above, so below. Well, science didn't create the world. Science is a methodology. Well, not just shoes. I mean, I guess I appreciate that, but I'd say for you, I hope that you start to look a little bit more critically at some of your beliefs about Freemasonry and this idea of certainly Freemasonry in movies. You definitely need to have a more critical eye in terms of what you believe about it, because you believe in some very silly stuff, some very, very silly stuff. What's a belief that I hold that might be completely wrong? Oh my gosh, there's so many. I suppose the idea that the universe is infinite, it's very likely it's not. That's very possible. Um, the idea that this channel will continue to grow, I could be wrong about that, but I hope I'm not. I suppose those are a couple. We can agree to disagree. That is true, not just shoes. We can. Keep in mind, if you do come back on the stream, though, right? If you keep saying the same things over and over again, eventually I'll put you on timeout, just because it's sooner it's repetitive. Yes, Mario Heat, I agree. Movies are movies. It's entertainment. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Mario Heat. I do hope that you're doing well, and thank you for being here. All right. We're definitely not going to encourage violence, Seraph. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump myself, but no encouraging of violence on the stream. I don't think the world is a closed loop. I think the world is not infinite. The earth will eventually be swallowed up by the sun. Well, the church doesn't offer same plus more. The church offers something different. It doesn't offer more, it just offers something different, but it offers something very valuable, right? You can't really get, for example, within a church, you're less likely to get skills when it comes to, for example, organizing and running a meeting or civic engagement skills, how to, table a motion, organize a motion, amend a motion. Those are all things you get from Freemasonry. Churches may have benevolence, but it's less likely. Very often, you can go to a church and say, I need help, I need, to pay my rent. They may help you, but Freemasonry can help you that as well. Um, the civic engagement, like Freemasonry, one thing Freemasonry offers is a reminder that men of all different faiths, beliefs, backgrounds can work together in harmony. A church, by its nature, cannot provide that, right? A church, you are a single denomination. That's how it works. Within Freemasonry, you have a Muslim sitting next to a Jewish person, sitting next to a Christian, sitting next to a First Nation spiritual, sitting next to a Wiccan, sitting next to a Hindu, sitting next to a Sikh. That teaches you skills, that teaches you tolerance, religious or otherwise, that teaches you kindness, that teaches you understanding. You meet people you would not otherwise meet. That also helps not just you as an individual, but it sets a precedent and an example for the entire community that people of different backgrounds can come together and metaphorically build a better world, or at least build a better community. So, but it just offers different things, Gareth. That's the key. Um, I mean, I don't think so. It's very hard for me to see how a church, certainly from the practical organizing emotion, meetings, things like that, how the church teaches that. In my experience, a religion by its nature teaches that there is a single, like a church will definitely teach you to be kind, respectful, understanding of different religions and different people. But a church teaches that there is one correct interpretation of, for example, the question of what is God. Within Freemasonry, we accept men of all different denominations and persuasions. It's kind of like the original show of religious tolerance. Now, churches can express religious tolerance, but I think within Freemasonry, it's more baked into the sauce, or it's more part of the sauce of Freemasonry, which I love. Also, Freemasonry can have family connections. You meet people you not meet otherwise. There's more of an emphasis on maybe philosophical teachings in some ways. It borrows from a variety of different philosophies, Stoicism, Enlightenment, Voltaire. So I think Freemasonry and church provide different things. It's not one provides anything better than the other. It's just they provide different things. Um, um, well, but again, if you're meeting on at a church on Sunday, you're probably meeting with people, all of whom have the same religious beliefs as you, right? Again, you're not getting necessarily the ability to run and organize a meeting. Again, a church can be an excellent way to get the things that Freemasonry provides you. And if you want to do that, you can. It's just for me, Freemasonry is better. Like I've said before, there's no difference than being a Freemason and being part of, let's say, a football team or a sports team. Both provide you with support, both provide you with friendships, both provide you with lessons on life that you can take outside of the field. Both provide you with, all sorts of different benefits. It's just what speaks to you. For me, Freemasonry speaks to me. For other people, they may choose to join sports. For other people, they may choose to go to church. And all of that is equally valid. It's the same way with music. My favorite song is Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. Your favorite song might be, I don't know, uh, Enter Sandman by Metallica. Both are valid. Both are great to listen to. You have to decide for yourself. I guess where I'd push back on you with Gareth is you said, a church provides you with Freemasonry plus. I wouldn't use the term plus because I think they're both serve different ultimate goals and purposes. So it's not fair to say plus. It's kind of like saying, KFC provides McDonald's plus. No, it provides something different. But you can be a Freemason and go to church. Absolutely. Many Freemasons do. Again, Freemasonry occupies the civic space. Freemasonry occupies the civic space. A church occupies the religious space. What's wrong with my collar? I'm going to be going off soon. So, Brian, I will fix my collar if you hit the like and subscribe button. How about that? Um, I'm not part of a cult, nor is it for money. I mean, I'm doing this to try to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession by, creating content about Freemasonry, but Freemasonry is not a cult. I, in fact, spent the whole stream today at 1 p.m. talking about why Freemasonry is not a cult. So there you go. Is there an IT department of Freemasonry? There should be. Um, the Knight Templar, from a Templar view, well, I mean, the Knights Templar is a group within Freemasonry, but you can go whatever way you want. That is not true, Matt the Worthy. A couple astronauts have been Freemasons, including Buzz Aldrin. The majority of astronauts are not Freemasons. I got a big nose. Please hit like and subscribe. Um, Person eating corn. I look like an ogre. Please hit like and subscribe as well. Um, yes, I kept meaning to, and now here I am talking. Um, well, Danny, that's fine. You can think that. Check out my stream as to why it's not. You can search for it on here. I had to explain it because a lot of people think it is, and a lot of people are wrong. All right, guys. I am from Canada, XCal. I do have to get to sleep. It's 3 in the morning. I'll be back tomorrow at 1. I'll be back at 1 p.m. February 4th. All right, guys. Talk to you later.